Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Nikki, for providing this platform to meet all today. And I will just see if I can share my screen. I just have some images really, so don't worry if you cannot see it on your kind of device, but it's just maybe nice to support that with things I'm gonna show and talk to you about. So 1 second. Hopefully that works.
Yep. Looks good.
Yeah. Cool.
Innovation, that's us.
Yeah, just really some images. So I'm talking to you today from West London, sort of Richmond. So Marcus, we're not too far away from each other.
I can walk there before this session is finished.
Quick. And so yeah, usually like planes are really flying on top of us and making lots of noise. I guess a bit less so these days. Also less so than I guess 10 years ago when I moved to London from my hometown Vienna in Austria. And yeah, I just really showed this image here, which almost looks like a postcard, but maybe some of you get it sometimes as a Windows sort of login screen. Microsoft shows this town in Upper Austria, which is not far from where my family is from. So I just thought I'd put this here as a kind of nice reminder, as you know, every now and then that pops up even here in London, logging on my laptop. And yeah, really, I moved here 10 years ago to really make an impact in the space of sort of low carbon energy and environmental technology. And at the beginning, I was doing a course, a sort of master's degree in that field at Imperial College, and started looking at the sort of food supply chains and managing and improving environmental impact on that on a global scale, and then sort of focused more on the energy space and especially renewable energy with sort of solar PV that I was really working on also 5 years ago when Nikki actually invited me to speak at a TEDx event in Vienna. So yeah, that was really when I was working on developing these large-scale solar PV plants, and one of them is this one. I hope you can see it. The screen is moving on. And yeah, it's really nice sometimes to combine also just the basic technology with things like you know, horse riding. This is just a British Olympics horse jump, I guess, using that area as well for the sports. And yeah, after the solar industry really grew a lot in the UK and made a really beneficial impact to sort of low carbon energy, I thought you know, it's also important to look at creating a decarbonization for other sectors like heat and transport. And yeah, and also avoiding sort of landfilling waste. So I'm really looking at this opportunity from using waste that you can't be recycled, really meaningfully reused for other purposes that would just be landfilled otherwise, and then literally go to waste to create those, you know, new opportunities of creating electricity or heat or fuels from that. So I really remember actually when at school in Vienna, we took this trip to a landfill site within Vienna, and it really left this sort of impact on me, I think, even until today. And Vienna was really like one of the, you know, kind of innovative company, or no, not company, country to implement energy from waste, as you call this type of technology. And this is sort of one of these plants that is actually next to the university I was studying in. And so it really shows like how people there really accept this type of technology, as the waste that they throw away and cannot recycle is being put to good use and sort of supplying them back with heat and power. And yeah, it also doesn't have to be this boring sort of gray box, I guess, always that, you know, this one has been designed by a famous architect, Wasser, and yeah, it's still sort of operational until today. And although this is already quite high in terms of the design sort of spec, I think you can, there's no limits almost with these. So this is actually one energy from waste plant in Copenhagen. So they even put a skiing slope on this. So yeah, it's, I guess, really a good way to also engage the public in this types of power plant, which is maybe less interesting usually for people to engage with, and sort of, you know, the waste that also needs to be dealt with. Yeah, so I think although this bar has been set very high in terms of design from these plants, not every plant can sort of, you know, be this high spec. So I just wanted to show you one of the projects I've been working on for the last few years, which is actually now in construction, and even the whole time during COVID-19 and this year it has been continuing well. So there's been a few hundred people on site sort of pressing on with building this infrastructure project just near Liverpool off the Manchester Ship Canal. So this is now has been in construction for over 2 years and coming to the operational start date next summer. And yeah, this is really the kind of first sort of non-subsidized gasification project in the UK that has been, you know, developed and financially closed. So meaning that before there used to be a lot of subsidy these types of projects, but we developed this on a sort of merchant basis. So merchant power, meaning we just export power to the grid, and also merchant waste. That means you know, there's no sort of local council direct contract at this stage, but we partner with the waste aggregators who then look for local suppliers in the area and make use of that residual waste that would otherwise go to landfill. So yeah, hopefully maybe some of you, if it's opening, once it's opening next year, hopefully we can all visit once restrictions have gone away, and yeah, it will be very satisfactory to actually see it, you know, being operational and taking waste and transforming that into power.
Being far away from that industry, what is the capacity of a space like this? How much landfill can this? Is it like from a city or from a village, or?
Yeah, so it could power like around, you could say, 50,000 households. So this would be an equivalent. And yeah, you would take waste from either local households, but also local industry. So depending on transport networks, you can transport it a bit further, potentially also by rail, which is then also low carbon transport, but otherwise rail, or potentially not for this project, but there could also be sort of by ship, basically, transport options.
Could you say that it provides energy for the same amount of households that it takes the landfill from?
I think you probably. I think you could. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, this is really a Japanese technology that, you know, in Japan, they've been operating this for like over 30 years. And I mean, my team has visited their plants there, and it's really impressive. I mean, you always have to take off your shoes to enter the actual power plant, which, I mean, yeah, you know, any power plant I've visited has not been that tidy that you would want to do that. So yeah, you have to take off your shoes, and then even, you know, kind of, it's very like high standard, so it's really there to deal with waste, and I think Japan are really a forward-thinking country in that respect as well.
How does it do it, Isabella?
So I mean, the process in general is a gasification, which is a fluidized bed kind of reactor in a way that is filled with lots of hot stones, and when waste is mixed into with that, that waste, combustible waste, would turn into a gas, and sort of power is generated through that. There are some parts obviously that can't be combusted, which is just stones or metal that would come out from that process clean again to be reused as a material. A small part of the overall material is sort of coming out as ash, which can though be used in kind of construction as aggregate. So I think compared to normal, let's say traditional incinerators, which I guess the historic plants would be, it's a much smaller portion of that, and also most of it is non-hazardous given the process it went through. So yeah, it can be reused in different ways.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I think really with these types of projects, we try to provide, well, this one is mainly providing electricity. Our next project we're developing is actually going to provide power directly to a big local manufacturing firm. So thereby also supporting sort of local industry, because the power that you provide can then be sort of sold to that manufacturer much more cheaply, because it doesn't have to go into the public grid network. So it's sort of an effective way also to power manufacturing, and yeah, for both parties, I guess, the project power plant and also the manufacturing entities. And yeah, I think with gasification, what was really special was about it that you can, in theory, also kind of you could theory turn this also as well into producing fuels, but the process can produce sort of chemicals and liquid fuels, which normal incineration could not do. So I think this is really going to be the future here, because I think if you look at transport, there's a lot of demand still for using or kind of coming up with low carbon fuel sources. And this technology is really a path into that. And I think, although it's early stages, so I think we're not yet there where one of these could produce hydrogen or other jet fuel, let's say. But there are many sort of projects trying to demonstrate that at commercial scale at the moment. I think, especially by the end of this year, we'll see a lot more happening in that space. And the project, even now, without sort of providing these fuels, is really showing carbon savings compared to obviously landfilling that waste. So you can really demonstrate the, say, environmental benefits as well of these types of development. And yeah, I think part of that is also, it definitely contributes to a lot of the sustainable development goals. So in terms of climate action and clean energy and sustainable cities. So yeah, I think it touches on a lot of these important themes going forward. And yeah, I guess maybe, I mean, if once planes start flying again a bit more frequently, that they could use waste, for example, as jet fuels and long haul flights. I think it's a bit more tricky with sort of batteries and that storage technology. So I think fuels like waste derived fuels could really be a big contribution there. And I think has been, many projects ongoing, like British Airways and sort of Virgin Atlantic have all been running trials and sort of trying it out on their planes and flights already. So I think it's quite exciting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think in general, I just wanted to bring this back to more like the idea of reusing waste, and it could also be in like a smaller scale. Obviously, as I think this one is a bicycle made out of an espresso pod. So although I think this is maybe a bit more on the higher scale range of price, so maybe it's not like we'd all suddenly have one of these, next year. But I think it just shows like often tries and helps to engage the public also on these aspects that there is still waste, and a lot of it could be put to a better use in sort of any scale or any form. And on a bit of a smaller scale, for example, in our office even, we collect the coffee grounds and they're being turned into these coffee logs, which can then be put into normal furnaces just at home, like your stove, or to use to create heat basically. And yeah, this is also another potential development, really, that it's sort of an appliance for your home that might be able to take all the waste that you produce in your home and actually help you create heat from that again. So it would avoid all the, let's say, the logistics around waste collection, which is not really that effective all the time, and the carbon emissions as well that are associated with that, and would help people save cost on their sort of heating bills, as it would be, say, it's a unit that's generating heat at home from the waste people have.
Understand, this device means in the long run that you use your own waste to produce your own heat.
It could be, yeah. So I mean, I think it's not proven on a big scale, but I think trials are starting, and it's still very expensive. So it might take a while until the price actually comes down to being being put into houses on a larger scale. But yes, there could be an idea, yeah.
Tesla did a really nice concept to make people use it. They say, send us your PG&E bill, and if you pay $100 a month today, you pay $80 down payment until you own the infrastructure. So it's basically a lease concept where from day one it's cheaper, and then one day you own it, and then you pay zero.
Definitely, could be quite exciting, the different structures around that. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, something to keep an eye out on. So yeah, I think it's also being currently tested in the UK. And yeah, so I think from all of this, I think it just really shows like how much waste there still is, and how much waste is being also exported across Europe and the world. And I think there are countries who try to stop that, and because they didn't want to just have the waste of countries anymore that didn't want to deal with it. So I think China banned recently sort of waste coming to them. And so I think it just means like also with COVID-19, I think just showed that you have to deal with things more locally, which is often also beneficial. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunity sort of to restructure like our thinking of actually using whatever waste is there on any sort of scale, personally, also business-wise. And yeah, I think when planes fly again, maybe some of them have more of waste derived fuels in there. And to help decarbonize our transport and heating networks potentially. And yeah, just wanted to leave you with this, like wherever we meet next, this blank postcard should show that. But yeah, it's always great to connect also in that space here. So yeah, just let me know if you have any questions about this sort of, brief overview of waste to energy.
Thank you so much for this. I'm psyched about the idea that we're going to have our own circular economy of waste delivery and energy at home.
It is, yeah, it would be quite revolutionary, I guess. Yeah, I would really, I guess, change a lot of the systems that are in place now. But yeah, I think definitely a great concept, I guess.
The utilities will hate you. There's always a hater.
There is, but yeah, I mean, it's landfill is also expensive. We can't keep landfilling forever, and we do still. I mean, I think Austria is quite far advanced in terms of not landfilling, but yeah, in the UK it's still a very widely spread activity, and yeah, obviously it has a big negative impact on the environment.
It would be interesting to see how that would change the view that you have on Paris, with the garbage disposal guys going on strike every other week, and you have these dump hills on the streets, and I just don't have them because you just have your own circle. How far do you think are we away from this?
So the personal garbage disposal. I mean, so I've been following it, I think, to some like a distance, let's say, for a couple of years. So I mean, to have it in people's homes, it can probably be like working maybe technically and commercially. I mean, could be in 5 years, but I think it will take longer than that to have like larger scale, meaningful adoption, definitely.
So 2020 was the year of hyper acceleration. A lot of things that happened this year would have happened anyways in the next 3 to 5 years. What do you think would need to happen for that 5 years that you're just saying as a rough forecast to be, I don't know, maybe in 2 years or next year?
I mean, I think in sort of these the waste infrastructure, and I guess this would be like a mini infrastructure, right? But also in a project I deal with, which are larger scale on a day-to-day basis, it's I think really funding is a big part in sort of the investment case and investors' confidence into the technology, like working as it is a very big sort of capital investment often that you need to do upfront, and even though you might be able to show that it's working elsewhere, like it's working in Japan, investors, for example, in the UK might still be very nervous. I mean, or there have been, I guess, before there was the first one. So I guess then it always needs to be the first one, but even to have the second one, then people start to maybe not immediately run after this, right? I think it's really to have a lot of confidence in that technology and be able to show that also to investors, which can kind of often unlock larger scale implementation. Because if funding wasn't an issue, I think everything could happen much faster.
What space? Does it occupy a lot of space? Like the pallets, if you have them at home, you'd have to have a whole room just for store the wood and
of this home unit, you mean? Oh, so to be honest, I'm not sure how. I mean, it seemed like from how I've been following it, sort of at a distance, it seemed like it's not so big itself, and it kind of then has a small amount of, let's say, ash. But apparently, this can be just disposed of in the sewage system. So I mean, it sounds like a great way, which I guess just not like a normal household appliance, and then you just have, I guess, your incombustibles like metal and glass still to get rid of. So yeah, but I mean, so it seems like actually quite good.
Any questions from you? I'm opening this up right there, so you're all invited to be part of the conversation. I'm blown. That's very impressive. I like the ratio, right? It's kind of the in equals out in numbers of households that you provide with gas or with energy. Seems to solve a big problem.
Yeah, and even if you also locate these power plants, which are obviously much larger, close to, let's say, manufacturing sites, often, it is even larger than some manufacturing sites need to, but because the power is sort of a base load power, so it's not intermittent like renewables, it's really good apart from some time when there's sort of planned maintenance, but it's limited throughout the year. It really provides the steady output, so I think it's very good in that sense to have a reliable source that it's always like sort of there and generating, because there's always waste that you need to get rid of. So you will be able to create value from that, I think.
If I'd be your genie in a bottle and you'd have this one obstacles and your number one worry to overcome right now today, what would that be?
I think maybe just some, I think more like in terms of unlocking, let's say, wider markets, and maybe not just in the UK, because I guess we're working on these projects here already, but maybe sort of a more accepted framework of what sort of these types of technology can do, as I think to the wider public is still very unclear, sort of what the value of this is. And I think even for people in terms of engagement with waste, like often they have no idea. And it is tricky, right? Even within London, it's different in every borough, and sort of very, very difficult to follow, I think, if you don't spend like time to actually research it. So I think maybe more awareness, which then I think would help with more implementation and widespread, because people are still very like a sort of the NIMBY movement. If you want to put a plant somewhere, then you often get opposition just because just how people oppose to almost anything, I guess. you want to build them there. So I would say that.
Any questions? Any concerns, thoughts? What do you guys think?
I perhaps had a question, if I may. And Isabella, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of the presentation, and so sorry to you and everyone else. But it sounds like just a fantastic opportunity. It certainly sounds like that a lot of different stakeholders, different areas of opportunity as well. How difficult are you finding it to focus your resources or your company's resources? Where to put the effort? And maybe where are you doing that as well?
Definitely. Saying very important concept, because it is like these projects in that scale take sort of years to develop. You have to bring a lot of stakeholders together to kind of shape and create this type of project. And then still, I think things could happen in the last minute that kind of make everything almost impossible again, or create another challenge to overcome. I think it's definitely at this time, it's very tempting to try to look at all these different types of technologies, as there are like many out there, all with potentially a different focus of using different types of waste for a different type of application. And I think, we do try to come back to say what is at this stage fundable, and where we can actually start construction, let's say today, within a few years, by developing those projects now that start creating impact earlier, which is more secure because it is fundable, and maybe to leave open those sort of potentials to, let's say, upgrade or slightly change technology to then potentially add another type of technology that would be at that point proven and fundable onto that existing one, and the main, let's say, base technology that potentially then lets you create a different type of output. So I think what we're trying to is strike a balance of take something that is kind of real now, and go ahead with that, and go ahead with a few of them, not just one, let's say, because I think within waste to energy, it's often been just one project being done in one way and the next one having to change again, which obviously takes a lot of time and is quite inefficient in terms of resources. And the kind of future flexibility of creating a different type of supply chain or overall value chain of that can be coming out from that process.
Because I'm sure you talked about that at the beginning, but the energy companies must be very interested in a number of ways, actually, in terms of partnering or maybe seeing the threat. And I guess that's it's
more, I think, waste, definitely the big waste companies, they also often develop these types of projects. I think typically it was more the more, let's say, basic incineration projects, and so it's not necessarily their main focus, but one of the things in their portfolio. So but because there is so much waste, it's kind of almost good to have competition as well, because otherwise not all the waste would ever get sort of put to a better use anyway.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks.
I suppose the real thing here, Niall and Isabella, is for us to not produce so much waste in the first place. So whilst it's wonderful to see that we can actually find a use of it, it'd be so much nicer if we just didn't do it.
Definitely, I agree. And I mean, even within, the sort of EU circular economy frameworks and forecast, I think in 2030, they still say, like, I don't know, 25% of waste could still be landfill. So I guess of whatever waste there is, even though it should be reduced by then, there's still a large part that they can't reuse within all the initiatives that are going on at the same time. So yeah, we'd still have to make use of that somehow. And I think energy from waste is definitely better than just going buried in landfill.
Niall, you're in central London.
Yes.
Isabella is in Richmond. I'm in Wimbledon. Thomas, where are you? Oh, you're muted, Thomas.
I am in Berlin, so very close to you guys.
And Nikki's in Vienna, right?
And Indra is in Vilnius, and Christian is in Vienna as well.
So between us, what should we all do in order to try and end up with a vaguely carbon neutral set of communities? Isabella, where do you come from this? Where do you think what we can each do our own?
So, I mean, I think on the personal level, if it's not sort of the, let's say, infrastructure development, that obviously is the other end of the spectrum. I think it is sort of often just the most basic things, as you say, like trying to avoid waste in the first place. And I think, even now with people spending more time at home, I think people also realize they can probably repair a lot of things before throwing them away. And although it sounds quite simple, but I think, it is just this awareness of everything you have, and maybe, just don't throw it away. And if you'd have to throw it away, I guess also think of how it's being, where it would end up with that type of, let's say, disposal route you choose. And I think often you have probably a few choices for disposal, and maybe the easiest one is probably not the let's say, best one in terms of the system's impact. So I guess it's just maybe taking the time to reflect on waste a bit more, though it sounds a bit loud.
Yeah,
I feel like it's non-acceptable that 100% of what we produce as humans is recyclable. I think wherever it goes, if it's less waste or if it's whatever, I think like plastic, I think only 8% of the plastic is recyclable, right? I think this is just not acceptable. I want to hear that 100% of whatever we do with things, we should be able to 100% recycle, upcycle, repurpose, whatever. That's something that I always feel like, you also mentioned like the non-recyclable waste. Like this is something I don't want to accept anymore.
I actually have a friend in Cologne, and she teaches people how to live free of plastic. So that's very interesting. So even like when you go grocery shopping, you always have these plastic bags and whatever. And
although I think that with plastic is the wrong conversation. I think we should use plastic, but we should not produce any virgin plastic anymore.
Yeah.
There's enough there already. Plastic is all bad. We just should make sure that we don't lose it, and we just put it back to repurposing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very the kind of life cycle assessments. I guess, it's just very complex for each type of item, even that you look at, right? Like if you say one plastic bag has this impact, but if you replace it with like a paper bag, it's not necessarily always better. But I think with the whole recyclability of project, I think where producers of goods can really make an impact is where they take that responsibility and for, let's say, doing like leasing models or taking it back for repairs, which I think often also companies do that, but they maybe just don't publicize it, so people just don't send it back. But I think most companies should really embrace their old products and kind of try to fix them or whatever, take them apart, and not just for it to end up in landfill as a whole.
I think Apple committed that they're not using anything anymore that's not 100% recyclable by 2025 or something like that.
Who was that?
Apple computers.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I mean, there could be, yeah, it's obviously because the phone, you know, compartment parts of a phone are like usually very full of very, you know, special material. And yeah, I mean, if they, I haven't heard that, but if that's feasible, I do actually have an fair phone, which is, I mean, it's not 100% obviously sustainable, as it's pretty much difficult to achieve that. But I think they are working on sort of a fairer supply chain for mobile phones and the parts, and sort of, you know, trying to make ethical mineral production, and trying to make the phone, which is also modular, so you don't have to, like Apple, give the whole thing back, or, you know, change it again, but change individual parts or upgrade them yourself, essentially.
Isabella, sorry, I'm going back to when you were giving the presentation about the plant which is under construction by the Manchester Ship Canal, and you used a particular phrase called financial close, and that sort of indicates that there is a whole business plan attached to it and a whole set of assumptions made in order to be able to support the amortization of the funding. So in your opinion, sorry, have I got that right?
Yep.
So given that you've been on both sides, on the one side, which is the environmental side, and the other side, which is the business side, because you've got your CV is both business from Vienna and environmental from Imperial. So you've got both sides, which is rather lovely. As you are looking presumably at the whole economics of it, what sort of major assumptions get made in big infrastructure projects like yours, where actually what we're doing is we're trying to monetize the value of waste?
I mean, yeah, waste obviously has a value. I mean, it really, the project is underpinned, as this one is not underpinned by subsidy, it's really underpinned by revenues from two sources, which is the fee for the waste, like basically what the project gets paid for taking that in and transferring it into something, and for whatever the output, what you get paid for the output, if it's with this one electricity, it's really just the power price. So also, given this project is on a merchant power basis, it is really just whatever the wholesale market power price is. So I guess, yeah, it's really the assumption is that wholesale, I mean, there's consultants who provide forecasts, you know, for 20, 30 years time, which is the lifetime of these sort of projects. And obviously there's a lot of changes that could happen within that. And you could take the assumption that prices might be on the higher side, price might be on the lower side. So yeah, probably some space for different assumptions there. And for the other parts, so the revenues from waste, I mean, in the UK, it's really sort of because of the landfill tax, there's sort of, that really helps to kind of also drive waste away from landfill, as it gets more and more expensive every year to landfill waste. So whereas markets where that's not the case, it would be more difficult to get that assumption for being you know, paid that amount of money for each ton of waste that comes in, because if the alternative would be to dump it for almost like no fee, then, you know, people would, if they can, unfortunately, always mostly prefer that. So yeah, I think those sort of long-term contracts for waste are definitely the other sort of, yeah, main driver, and I guess subject to sensitivities or different views. So yeah, it's also really then, I guess, financial closes, that point where all the agreements come together and all the parties come together to really finalize what the project will do, and where all the money is really committed to that project up front. And yeah, so you'd have to collectively form a view and agree, let's say, the assumptions on that.
So is it a PFI type project?
I mean, similar, but I guess here there's really different types of structure. So I think in maybe other markets we would typically do more sort of where also even those contracts might be underpinned by government contracts, but really in the UK we're now wanting to do projects on a merchant basis that are not subsidized. So yeah, I think it's just the way the subsidy has developed. It was there obviously also for this type of technology, and then it was really changed. So along with the overall renewable subsidies, it sort of was stopped by the government as it's just a lot of projects were claiming it, and it had to end. I guess it did end a bit earlier than expected, but then there's a new type of subsidy which was introduced, but it's really not made for this type of technology. We found so yeah, we really feel that it's the best to just have these on a, let's say, privately funded basis. Now you're looking like, is it really your view in the daytime or
Oh, sorry, was that to me or?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I wish it's my new green screen. It's working quite well, actually. But no, it's not far from here though. I mean, but I don't quite have the same height from my flat window. I did have a question, Isabella, about how far are you able to go back up the supply chain? I mean, are there any opportunities? Because I don't know anything about the industry, but are there opportunities to partner or to find funding from some of the big brands that are ultimately, the source of waste? Maybe from their own sustainability objectives. Maybe image related. I mean, are there any opportunities there?
I guess for this type of scale, because it's like very different types of waste streams that you will get. So maybe it's more difficult to tie to one company that would be benefiting from that. But I think, for probably a bit smaller type projects, I think there's definitely opportunity for sort of joint ventures or for other types of cooperation to be formed with sort of also the waste producer as eventually you're also helping them with first taking the waste and then potentially providing them with other power outputs.
Also, maybe certain industry associations as well that can influence. I don't know. You're right. It's about scale, and I'm sure that you need. It's a very fragmented waste ecosystem, isn't it? So it's probably difficult to find one industry or perhaps an overarching organization to support. But
Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely have taken the approach that we'd like try to have a sort of partnerships agreement in place. So if we find one like large landowner, let's say in that we do one project with, we'd like to obviously see what else there might be in that portfolio to kind of just try to get these economies of scale of also implementing the types of projects. And so you can try to sort of do it with each element, let's say, of the project. So you can also do that with the waste supply and with the let's say the construction company and expertise and those arrangements. So I think definitely it is feasible, and I think previously I think there were examples where people have co-funded these projects.
Right.
Isabella, thank you so much. I'm in awe. Congratulations to where it's been going from the sun to the waste. Conversation.
Thank you,
Fantastic.
I want to have that circular waste into energy thing in my home next year, not in 5 years. I don't want to wait 5 years to see you again.
I'll put you in touch. You can maybe the European trials for it.
Yes, I'll be there for trials.
Waste is different everywhere, so you have to trial it in different places. Make that point.
Well, I'm a noble traveler. I'm a gypsy, so an innovation nova. I'll bring my waste. I lead my waste in many places in the world. Thank you so much, Isabella. That was great. Sessions recorded. We can revisit it. I'm going to introduce you to everyone who participated, and also those who could not make it to the room to, I don't know, follow up wherever it may lead. In the room, people all in London. Maybe you guys want to meet over a coffee. You can
absolutely, yeah.
figure it out. Thank you so much. Have a great.
Thank you, Nikki. You know, it was great. Great to meet you all, and thanks for joining. And yeah, as I say, hopefully keep in touch.
Definitely.
All the best. Have a great.
Thanks, Isabella. Good luck.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye bye.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks for putting that together, Nikki.